like 2 years, got about 2 years out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they warned you. I saw some of the notes on, and I've got another one in it now. It's been in a year. But it sounds like they've improved them, but maybe not to the enterprise level.
Well, I had to replace 3 enterprise grade SSDs this week. And the last one was lost.
Okay.
But it was a mirror, and
hey there. Can't hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, I cannot hear you, Leroy.
Mine looks like it's working. See,
You see the,
so if you turn on your speaker and you get feedback, then
Now I can start to hear you, but you're pretty quiet.
oh, that's not Leroy then.
oh, you're still muted. You're still muted.
Yeah, I'm still muted. Yes, if he's hearing you, I'm not gonna jump in and jump.
I'm hearing like when Steve hit the table there. I heard that. I think you put something hard down on the table, Steve. Nope, don't hear you now. Nope. And I can't hear you when you speak either. Do you have the microphone up there, Leroy?
Okay, I turned my microphone on.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I got a feedback loop there a bit.
How about now?
I can hear something very faint.
How about now?
Now I can hear you.
okay.
How about Steve? Can you hear Steve?
Test 1, 2.
Yep.
All right. Something.
Did you want to? No.
What was going on, Leroy?
Something was screwing with the audio settings again. I don't know.
A thing you might want to play with, you can do also a command line that just sets the mixers at this setting, no matter what.
Yeah. For sometimes I think it's probably the order I plug stuff in. Sometimes stuff just gets wacky.
Yeah.
But remember 3 or 4 weeks ago, he couldn't hear us and I had to turn on the automatic adjust.
I don't remember 3 minutes ago.
Well, 3 or 4 weeks ago, he couldn't hear us and I had to turn on the automatic adjust. Now I just turned off the automatic adjust so he could hear us.
Okay.
So go figure. I don't know, something's screwing.
We're in a desperation situation here, Steve, in case you don't know. The drink machine is out.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah.
And the bathroom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with the bathroom?
Well, maybe they closed it and then everybody had to pee, so they said, we'll take away their drinks. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, there's a cone up in front of the bathroom right now.
There was somebody that was waxing the floors or something. That could be it.
But the more serious, I would like that cone in front of a drink machine and they could do whatever they want to with the bathroom. Dang. That's desperate. Of course, quitting time would be a different story.
Oh, we have our robots.
We have robots. It's not good news.
What's not good news?
I got this guy getting going. I got this one set up and the time of flight sensors going, but it wasn't as straightforward as just mapping it out like I wanted it to be. I ended up putting changing the training model for it, and it's not right. It's sort of working, sort of backs up a lot, which it's not supposed to do.
But it does look like the LED colors are
Yes.
indicative of something now.
Yes, the LEDs actually work for whatever reason with this. So, and I added 2 more LEDs right there in the center, which these 2 right here, that is part of the training data. So when those go out, it's almost trained. These ones here are the nodes. And these 2 are the inputs. And for whatever reason, as soon as I added the LEDs on the time of flight sensors, the LEDs actually started working for when it's actually moving too. Yeah, I know. I said the same thing. Why they started working, I have no idea, but they did.
So we've got 4 LEDs for nodes,
Yeah.
2 time of flight sensors, 2 what?
2 what?
What are the 4 LEDs for?
5. There should be 5 that are lighting up.
Only 4 are. Doesn't look to me like the bottom one does.
It will, or it should, eventually. These two in the center are, they're the training model.
Okay.
And I added those so that if it wasn't connected to the computer, we could see more or less when it thinks it's trained.
Mhm.
So when those go out, about 30 seconds to a minute later, it's trained. These 2 are the inputs.
Oh, okay.
So they are signifying, actually, while it's in training mode, they're not signifying actual real inputs, they're signifying random inputs.
Okay.
And then the 5 that are over here are the outputs, that what it thinks it should be doing.
Okay.
So it's trying to match the inputs with the proper output, and eventually the training lights will go out and it will be trained.
I don't see how it does that without moving.
It's simulated data right now. So it's randomly, it knows what it can predict what it should be, and
Okay,
there's an error rate. So one of these lights is the error rate, and one of them's something else. When the error starts to go down, and actually I've got, for whatever reason, the LEDs are backwards. It starts off green, which you would think would be good,
all's good, yeah,
and starts going more red.
okay,
It should be backward, it should be opposite, but I don't care, the lights are working. So if you watch, the two training lights will start to get more red until they eventually go out altogether.
okay,
And as they get more red, that means that the error and the other thing are getting closer together, and they're starting to match up to what they want to be.
they have been going back and forth, mostly red and yellow.
Or
Now
red
they're
and white.
both kind of purplish.
Yeah. So they're going to get, they should get closer together.
And end up being white.
They'll end up going out, is what they'll end up doing. Because it's using small numbers multiplied by a bigger number to get some number that actually displays. So eventually this number will get so large that the LEDs can't display it at all. So it'll just go out. But it's backward. It should start off red and get to
Okay.
But
That's
I-
gotta be relative. No? Okay.
no, because these should be going green too, and they're going red as well. So probably for the same stupid reason. Now, when it actually gets trained, the outputs will be blue-ish, where the inputs are still kind of red and white. See, it's dealing with, we'd have to look at the program, but these numbers coming off of here could go as high as 2,000 millimeters.
Okay,
Well, if you multiply 2,000 by whatever, some number, it's already more than 255. So fast LED just says, the hell with you. I'm not going to do anything with that.
so the middle two are out now.
Yeah. So it should actually be pretty close to being trained at this point. It depends. That means the error rate and the number that you actually want, the match number, are actually getting fairly close together.
Okay.
I had to change. So the original that was using the ultrasonics was using centimeters instead of millimeters. I had to change the training data. Oh, look.
Oh, that worked.
It's not working quite well. It's going around, it's going backwards.
It'll back up into you, but it won't run head on into you. That's good. There you go. Okay.
Seems to go backward more than forward.
Yes, well,
Just fix the camera.
that's telling me my training data isn't 100%. And then it gets to the point where suddenly it just decides to run into stuff. So, all right, pick that sucker up. So anyway, you can probably see there's two red lights. Those are the inputs. And they are actually twinkling a little tiny bit, but it's really, really hard to see. And then you've got the output nodes. And the center output node should be straight. So it should actually default to wanting to go straight all the time, but you see it's constantly changing. Especially when it's pointed at nothing.
Well, at that point, it's just getting random inputs, I assume.
Yeah, and I've got the averaging thing set to, I've actually averaged it a lot higher than the other average was going on. It's just not right. I don't know, we discussed last week about the angle of the sensor. I'm starting to have feelings that maybe the angle of these sensors is just too small. That the ultrasonics had a wider angle.
Yeah, these are a dot.
Very.
You're not talking about toe in and toe out. You're talking about the width of the beam.
Right. Right. So I haven't made much progress. I mean, the biggest bit was actually just going, why doesn't the map thing not work? And perhaps using ultrasound or time of flight sensors was a fool's errand. So time of flight sensors are actually very stable, especially when you do the average out. If I had brought a cable, I could show what that looks like on the serial monitor, and they're actually very stable. So I'm not real. It's got to be my training data is just not good. But
Now, are those two sensors pointed straight ahead, parallel, or are they towed in a little bit or towed out a little bit?
they are more or less straight ahead. This sensor here is actually, when I dropped it onto the glue, I dropped it a little further back. And believe it or not, it actually, when they're pointed at the same thing, it actually says that it's about a millimeter or two off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. So I actually took and compensated for that. The fact that sensor is sitting back a little bit, I've added a couple more into it. Doesn't really seem to make much of a difference. So, but if you look really close, I don't know if you can see it or not. Oh, look, we're very far behind. I don't know if you can tell or not, but this one is actually sitting back just a hair. Just enough.
Millimeters are tiny.
Millimeters are tiny. So this one here, using the same time of flight sensors, but a different platform altogether. This one, I'm using, both of them are on their own I2C bus. So I had to jigger around to get that to work a bit. So, I2C bus 0, I2C bus 1, not a big deal, but there's some redundant code in there because it had to do that. This one here, when I get it working, that's a multiplexer. So it's only on one I2C bus, but I turn it on in the multiplexer and I can read each individual thing. I don't think I'm gonna have the same problem with this one because these are, I mean, they're attached to a Lego piece that is fairly straight. I don't think I'm gonna have the same problem as compensating, but I haven't even worked on this one yet because other than building it, because I wanted to get this one working first. It looks funky with those eyes like that. That's my progress report, such as it is.
So the time of flight, are those 5 volts or 3.3 volts?
3.3 volts.
Okay.
The sensors that I bought could actually be either. They've got a little tiny voltage regulator on them. I didn't bring the sensor. I can't really open it up. Yeah. It's a little module. It's got a the time of flight sensor. It's got some miscellaneous components and it's got a voltage regulator on it.
That's a boost buck kind of a thing?
Do what?
The voltage regulator, is that a boost buck or is that a classic voltage regulator?
It looks like it's a classic voltage
Well,
regulator.
the question is, does it get hot?
Not that I have seen yet.
A classic voltage regulator, if your voltage is very far up, is going to get pretty warm.
That depends on what kind it is.
Well, the boost bucks don't. That's the whole point. But
Yeah.
the classic one basically just dissipates that extra energy. So if you're using a 5-volt power supply and you want to get down to 3.3, it just burns off that power between that 1.7 volts there.
This chassis here is only a 3-volt chassis anyway, so
Okay.
it says 3.3 volts. So at best, it's the regulator isn't doing anything. At
Okay.
worst, it's doing a little teeny tiny bit of something.
Okay.
But now this one here, the I2C interface does provide 5 volts. So I'm sure that since these were designed to work with this, I'm sure they've got something. And they say on the back of that one, I don't know if you can see that or not, but on the back of it, it says 5 volts.
Ah, okay.
So they've got a regulator in that as well. But beyond putting that together, I haven't messed with though, because this was going to be my proof of concept and this was going to be my masterpiece.
Okay. You guys have had some exciting weather in the last few days.
Yes, we have.
My daughter and son-in-law lost power in their house. And it was one of those nights where it was excruciatingly hot and humid. So they ended up going over to our house and where we had not lost power and enjoying the air conditioning in the guest room there. So it was, but you've also been having some voltage spikes other than the power failure. And so I now have the first of 4 UPSs I'm buying. I had the first one shipped out here so I could test it. And then, so I'm going to end up with at least 2 here and at least 2 in Milford.
What'd you get?
Whatever that one was that you recommended, Steve, it wasn't an APC. It was the,
Cyber Power?
yeah, Cyber Power. Matter of fact, it just came in this afternoon. I haven't even unboxed it yet.
If you open those up, the boards in them say APC.
What is that? Somebody's talking over.
I think it's Ray. I muted Ray.
Okay, what'd you say, Steve?
If you open up Cyber Power UPSs, the boards all say APC on them.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a
Rebrand.
it's not even a rebrand. They're made by APC and sold under a different name at a lower price just so they can get more sales.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's just a private label situation.
Yeah. And they're pretty decent, dude. I mean, I run APC
APC UPS.
Yeah, I think so. To
That's
monitor them and do the
there's a-
everything.
There's a daemon you can run.
Yeah.
At least on Linux. I don't know if you can run it on Windows. I assume you can, but it gives you access to all of the settings so that you can set up how long you wait, or how close to zero power you wait before you shut down the computer, and how long you wait for things to recharge before you boot the computer back up again, and so forth and so on.
No, that it won't do. Not unless you got some pretty high-end ones. There's no way for the UPS to turn the computer back on. Once the computer shuts down, you've got to go back in and push the button. There's some tricks you can do to get around that.
Well, you can set up the computer so that when the power comes on, it starts up.
Right.
That's
most of the Cyber Power UPSs don't auto start once they shut down.
When the voltage comes back, they don't come back.
If APC UPS shuts down the server and the APs and the Cyber Power never loses power, if it's always running, then when it charges back up, everything is stuck there. The server never sees a cycle in power, so it doesn't start up. If it does shut all the way down because the batteries run down, then the Cyber Power doesn't turn itself back on when power comes on. There are some tricks you can get around that with. There's an Arduino project that plugs into it that takes care of it handily.
Huh. Okay, well, that's good for me to know. So the reality is most of the problems I've had with power failures are like everything from a flicker of the lights to a couple of minutes. So most of the time, they're really never going to shut down.
Right.
Because it'll run for, depending on the computer, they'll run for half an hour to an hour, maybe even 2 hours if they're not doing anything. But
What size did you get?
pardon?
What size did you get?
Either 1200 or 1500, I forget.
So I've got a 1500. It'll run my main server, just one box, for about 30 minutes.
Okay, well, I don't have any hard data because I have not had occasion to use them yet. So I may be talking out the top of my head at this point. But it should continue to run the box for a short period of time. And as I say, most of the problems I have are where we have a very short interruption. A lot of them are just, a lot of them are just, the lights flicker.
Right.
And that's enough to reboot the computers.
Yeah, and
but
you'll never even notice. I've got mine set to power off the server at 50% battery.
uh-huh.
And you really don't want to take your battery much below that.
Okay.
It's a lead acid car battery in there. It's damaged.
Okay.
Beyond that.
Well, these are lead acid batteries. These are not lithium ion batteries.
Right.
I'm a little nervous about having a box with a big lithium ion battery in it sitting there while I'm not in neighborhood, so to speak.
I've got one with a lithium battery in Huntington, West Virginia, and I've had no problems with it. It was kind of surprising because it's a small APC, but normally small APCs weigh in at 10 or 12 pounds and it weighs in at 2. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it's had no issues. It's also going on 5 years old. I'll check to see what it thinks about its battery life now.
Well, the lithium ions are quite a bit more expensive also.
This one I got at Walmart and it was the same cost. It's like they shipped the wrong thing.
Go back and order some more.
Well, it wasn't an order. I was in Huntington setting up an office and I wanted to put in a UPS because they had power issues in Huntington. They have power issues in West Virginia. So I go to Walmart, oh, there's a stack of them. Like, whoa, this is weird. And I opened it up in the shop and these are glued shut. You can't open them up. And it was interesting, but I verified it had a battery in it. Relatively small. They were 650 VA units.
Well, I've got an APC. I've been using it clients for, well, actually they're into their second one now. I think about 10 years, but I think it's only about 800, maybe 500, something like that. Because it's a client that's local here in California, and I was routinely having a problem of, they'd get a flicker of the lights and everything would shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put it in there. So it's never been badly stressed, and it'll run the server I've got there for about 30 minutes, I think. And I believe was my observation one of the times we had a long shutdown. We've had power problems here in California associated with what they call PG&E. They're the ones that are implicated in the lawsuits on the fires and all that kind of stuff. You probably have heard about them in the news. They started a couple of the monster fires about 2 or 3 years ago because they had unmaintained power lines that they hadn't bothered to cut the trees back from, and so forth and so on. So At any rate, they're not on my list of good vendors. Unfortunately, you don't have any other choice unless you want to put in your own, put in your own nuclear reactor in the backyard.
No lights flickering then.
Pardon?
No lights flickering then. Be nice to be able to put a nuke in my own backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I do it.
I seriously regret that as a child, I could not convince my dad to buy one of the nuclear thermopiles that they used to sell in comic books. They looked like a UFO. They were about this big, and it was a pile of thermocouples. The outside got warm, and it had, I think, cesium in it.
This was real or this was
Yeah.
in the comic book?
It was a real thing. It was a thing that you could buy. And
Really?
You can buy all kinds of neat stuff like
Yeah.
from comic books.
How many of you had, how many of us had cesium when they were kids?
yeah, I did.
Oh, it's Kenny. His legs and
That's Kenny.
and to
Wow.
show out his legs.
Wow. This is not virtual.
No.
This is real.
I hope not.
Yo,
Hey,
I'm looking for air conditioning, you know? There's none in this room, it's too hot. Once, I understand, it's the people here.
We run hot.
Oh,
We run a little bit hot here.
Oh,
Yeah, 96. Ooh, that's hot. Ooh,
Well, not only that,
I ran the AC in the car. That's how hot it was.
yeah, that's,
well, not only that, the humidity is pretty high over there.
yeah, just a little. Does 80 sound good?
80 would be nicer.
No, humidity's 80.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty, I don't think it's 80, but I think it's, they said it was 45, but I don't believe that.
45% humidity?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's way higher than that.
Yeah.
60 is at the end of the comfort. Okay, and then
Yeah.
after that, you know, the greater it is, the more the muggy it gets.
When I was in New Jersey many, many years ago, we used to have days that we called 90-90s. And it was 90 degrees Fahrenheit and 90% humidity. And man, the sweat just, soaked you.
but now we have 99 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
That's worse.
Oh, it's a global warming, that's all. It's a little global warming.
And we had a very strong storm 3 days ago.
Did you lose power by Sunday?
No, my power was okay, no problem. But many houses around lost power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many still are without power. But
It was,
the problem for me was the branches. A lot of branches broken, and I am still picking them because I try to work before 8 in the morning and after 7 in the afternoon because it's really, really hot and a lot of humidity. So it's very hard to be outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Drink lots of water if you go out there.
Mm,
oh yeah, stay hydrated.
I do that before a while.
Yeah, we lost power. My son, he's lived in the same apartment complex for 3 years now. He says this is the first time that they've lost power. We were out without power for about 6 hours.
My lights were there were a lot of flickering all the time, during the storm, but I never lose power. The computer just was okay all the time, so it survives.
Well, I was telling Jim earlier, we I had the granddaughter with us, and we were out on the porch watching the storm, and I saw the lights across the way start to flicker, and I said, "I'm going to go in and turn the computer off." I knew the power was getting ready to go.
It's one of the advantages of laptops. My server is on a decent UPS and everything else is a laptop, so it has its own built-in UPS.
Well, the laptop's got a built-in UPS in
Yes,
effect.
yes, yes.
It does.
Then,
Well, yeah, so this is the first time in 3 years that I know of that we've lost power there, so that's not bad. It's pretty good.
I was talking with my oldest kid today. He's been without power for a day and a half. It's back on now. He called me when the power came on. Why didn't you come over?
Well, my mom, she has been without power for a while, and I said, "We've got power, just come over here and hang
Yeah.
out in the AC or whatever." No,
Yeah.
it's all right, I'm fine.
Our lights flickered. That was it. I've got a generator. My kids know I have a generator. If the power goes out, it takes 20 minutes to plug it in and get things going.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
I mean, the worst part for us was it happened about 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. I was getting hungry and no food.
Yeah.
So, we went out. Storm was pretty much over by then. We went out and every restaurant was dark. Everywhere we went to 4 different cities. Every place was dark. I'm like, okay. So we went to Kroger's. They had power.
They have a generator.
Some of them don't,
Really? Okay.
but they had power. And
Who was this?
me. So Kroger grocery store.
All the Menard stores, which is compete against Lowe's and Home Depot, all the Menard stores have generators. So the power goes off, they're not without power.
Yeah.
So
That's because they started in Wisconsin and it's kind of a necessity.
Yes.
Kind of a
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
So yeah, it was a bad winter, it was a bad storm. I lost my umbrella. Well, I heard this big bang and I went and looked and there was no picnic table with the umbrella. It was gone.
Gone.
Oh,
The girl was saying you lost your umbrella along there.
Yeah, I lost my mind. Long ago too, yeah. So,
Not sure what
so
that
I
means.
didn't do anything and then about an hour and a half later, my next door neighbor called up, says, "You lose an umbrella?" Says, "I rescued it for you." I said, "Well, that's good, I'll be over to get it." But then we drove up,
At least it didn't go too far.
no, then we went up to Milltown, the day after, and virtually every signal light was out.
Yeah.
There wasn't one. And we just went straight on through,
Ooh, you're supposed to stop.
You're supposed to
I was
stop.
supposed to, but we didn't. So, well, we didn't get
I-
hit.
Yeah. Well, going down 63, what happened? Oh, there's a question mark.
What the heck is that?
Okay, it's all dark or blurry or,
I believe that's your choice here.
yes.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, you need to focus that a little bit if you can.
What are you doing, my son? Okay,
experimenting.
are you asking about my thing?
Yeah.
It's too late. You missed it.
Why? It's too early. 5:40. You are working out of schedule.
So it's not working right. We did play with it a little bit.
Okay.
We'll do it again.
What is it?
It'd be a robot. Look, you see how it's green?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's backwards. So,
And you have the TOF sensors?
The time of flight sensors are on. I'm getting data. It wasn't as simple as just mapping like I wanted to do. So I've actually had to change the training data to make this work.
Mhm.
And my training data is still wrong, as will be evident when it starts moving. But the good news is the LED started working, so
Okay.
yeah.
What's on the side?
That is a multiplexer, an ITC multiplexer. So you can have up to 8 devices with the same ITC address on it.
That's a stout little battery in there.
Yeah. Doesn't last as long as you'd think it would.
Four-wheel drive. Rough.
So it wasn't a matter of mapping the data. You need to rebuild all the tables, all the learning stuff.
The original with the ultrasonics, that was in centimeters.
Mhm.
And even trying to map it to somewhere in the neighborhood of the right value just didn't work well. And so I ended up taking the original training data and just turning it into millimeters. But as we'll see when this thing actually starts going, that didn't quite work as well as I wanted either. So I've got to go through and I've got to try to find, do some deep digging on how this training data is actually working
Mhm.
and what it's actually doing. But you can't see it on the camera.
Yeah.
I wire wrapped it so that the connection will be better. I'm using 2 I2C buses on this, so there's no multiplexer.
Okay.
I'm doing some funky stuff here, but none of it's quite right. My parts came in for that. For the other one, almost see the LEDs. I can't tell are these.
So the LEDs are working now?
The LEDs are actually working. They're actually
Yeah.
doing
What
something.
happened?
I added a couple of LEDs up here so that
Yeah.
when it's in training mode, we can see
And
that it's
what
actually being trained.
was the problem? The address, the library?
I don't know.
They start working, just that.
Hey,
What started in motion?
it got trained.
Oh, it was training during that time. Come here, boy, come here.
So I haven't seen the LEDs for the time of flight sensors change.
They are. They're just.
Okay.
it changes so fast, they flick. And if you hold a phone up or something to it, maybe, maybe you'd see the flick. Yeah, I think part of the problem, I think there's a couple of different problems going on with this. I think it's trying to back up too much now. And that's a delay, which, as you know, it can't be doing anything else while it's in a delay. For some reason it's, but so I think that's part of the problem. I think the training data is wrong. I think there's a lot of different things that are just wrong about this.
Seems to want to go towards you, Leroy.
No. Patty still says that it looks scared, especially when it tries to back out. Now, of course, the original project was using ultrasonics and was always in a go forward motion. See, it didn't really. It also seems to me like the longer it's running, the more it wants to hit things, which is just
Yeah, that's weird.
weird.
You need an edge sensor there.
Technically, it's got one, but it's not engaged.
Doing something.
I think the problem is just that it doesn't have enough light.
Yeah, we need more lights.
You're leaving light.
Actually, those should be a lot dimmer. I don't know why they're so bright. They should be as dim as when, you know, when it was training. But yeah, they were, which honestly, hey, fine, don't see me. So sometimes it
Looks
acts
like
like,
if you get too close, it wants to come after you. Yeah, like that. You get too close.
the sensor is just at 20 millimeters or less. I mean, the sensor has, if it's 20 millimeters or less, it has no idea. It'll just read that as 20, 20, 20, 20, 20.
Have anything in there telling it to never get closer than 20 millimeters?
So there is,
Okay.
but obviously it's not working. The training data suggests that it shouldn't get less than 100 millimeters.
Okay. 3.5, 4 inches.
The training data which suggests that doesn't seem to always be true though.
Doesn't say
Excuse me.
little.
I found an interesting sensor, and TOF sensor that has an array of 8 by 8 points.
Okay.
So you can have like a map or something of the, well, what are you looking at?
Time of flight sensor?
Yeah, let me show you in the share screen.
Yeah. Oh, I probably didn't turn share screen on.
Yeah.
I probably need to do that. Hang on.
Uh,
All right, you should be able to share screen.
This sensor has its own microcontroller to drive all the microcode or the show. Do you see something?
Yes.
Yes, this is from ST.
Yeah,
This is the sensor.
the L5CX.
It costs like $10, but you can buy a board with the sensor on it for, I think, 14.
Okay.
So you have like a matrix of 64 points in front of you, and you have a distance of 400 centimeters. You see here, 400, and you
Okay.
can have 60 images per second, 60 hertz.
What's the minimum distance on it?
I don't know. 8 by 8 zones with a wide 63 diagonal. All right, immunity to cover glass cross-talking. No, for me, it's not something new. I don't know exactly how it works, but I think you can buy it in Mouser.
Mm-hmm. Buy it directly from ST. Yep, Mauser for $18.
ST used to be really good on sending samples.
Yeah.
ST used to be really good about samples, yeah.
No, there is this board. You see?
DigiSpark or
Oh, look, Smartphone.
Fun.
Smartphone also have something,
How much? $25.
yes, but it's not the same. It's just distance. I know. Look,
It's the same model number.
yeah, I think. Let me check. Looks like.
Well, SparkFun is never
Yes,
the
looks,
low priced vendor.
no, it's not cheap, but they are very innovative. You know, they have new stuff all the time.
Yeah,
That's true.
The good thing about SparkFun, they usually write libraries. They're like Adafruit. They're not cheap, but they write libraries and they have examples
Yes,
of how to
yes,
make their stuff
exactly.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see the price, but there is
I mean, that's only like what, $3 more than one
24.
from ST,
Yeah.
$4 more, something like that.
ST sell this one, right?
They generate the interrupt if something moves in front of it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That, you
If
can
you
cut
gotta
your,
connect to the interrupt pin, it will.
well, that's what I was.
So you can you could use this sensor as a gesture motion too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
You can swipe it left or right or whatever. It's really neat sensor. Okay, that's cool. I may have to. I don't know. I may have to.
This sensor will make your robot worse. You know, will,
Yeah,
will be
it'll make
a big problem.
So
I think there's a couple of different issues with mine. I think one of them, I've got the delays on the wheels, which that's never good with robots having a delay in it because they can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple. I think, the time of flight sensors are a whole lot faster than the ultrasonics.
Yeah, but I think everything is different. You know, the angle of the sensors, the distance
angle.
between sensors.
Yeah.
I think your training data is unuseful for that.
We discussed the angle being off a little bit earlier today because these are very straight on.
Yeah.
One of my sensors is also setting back just a little bit, which is causing it to read a little bit different. There's several different things going against me here, but I think the biggest going against me thing is training data. The training data just isn't right. And nothing I've done so far has, this is the closest I've gotten.
Also your reaction time, the speed of your wheels affect everything. You know, when you change direction at different speeds.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the delay.
Yeah.
Is not, the delay is definitely not helping me in this situation right now.
Yeah. But I don't talk about delay. I am talking about the speed of your robot. When it make a decision, they turn in one direction, and the speed of turning affects the training data. You know, if you turn faster or slower, your training data must be different.
Okay.
It's part of the system of the reaction, the behavior of the system.
Yeah.
So you need to make your own training data. I don't know if they explain how to.
Not really. It's left and right. It's two values, left and right values of the sensor, and in this case, it's going to be in millimeters.
Yeah. But I think that there are places in the web that you can put your sampling data, and they create a new table, a new training data.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm sure that my training data is way off on this one because I mean the sensors are just different. I mean a lot different.
I saw an example of training an Arduino to learn to present 7 segments display when you put different combinations of 4 bits. So they explain how to make the training to let the Arduino understand what to show when you put different bits combination. It's something very simple, but it has the concept, you know, of training data.
Do you have a link to it?
I will find it. I will send you the link.
I saw something that was doing that with an LED, but I didn't think they explained. Maybe I was reading something else. Maybe I was looking at something else.
I think definitively you need to train your own assembly.
And it's about 95K firmware. Ethernet requires firmware to be loaded power on every I square C. firmware is about 90K bytes. We recommend a microcontroller within the flash to store the firmware as well as your program code. Sorry, Unos are out.
Really?
Yep.
So that's the,
Which is kind of cool because it means if something about it is weird, they can update it later and download it.
that's the sensor that Vicente was looking at. Okay. Did you hear that, Vicente?
No, sorry.
That
The
L5
8x8 sensor.
that time of flight sensor
Uh-huh.
has to load the firmware every time you power it on.
Okay. So you only need a simple library to interact with it.
Yeah, but the firmware is about 90K.
Wow. And it's inside the sensor, right?
Yeah.
So they almost do all the math for you.
That's-
Maybe you just have a matrix with values with different distances in each cell,
Mm-hmm.
so you can do whatever with that. Interesting.
About a 60-degree field of view, which is nice. I'm interested in that thing.
It's interesting.
Order
I will try in the future to do something with it.
What's the wavelength of those time of flight sensors?
usually IR.
I don't know, but you can use just the code of the sensor and look in the web for.
It says it has an IR filter on it, so probably IR.
Yeah. The SparkFun board even says you have to load the firmware every time.
Okay,
Wow.
no good.
So it doesn't have any memory then?
Cool. It has at least 90K,
Yeah.
Well, it
sort of.
It's-
doesn't know how to work until you load the firmware on it. So
Oh, why that?
The thing that I don't understand is why can't you store the firmware in flash memory so that between each run you can retain the previous?
Yes, it's strange. I don't know. Maybe it's faster when you run from RAM, and maybe they are changing continuously the functionality, maybe different versions or so, and they want to keep it changing. I don't know.
Maybe they plan on selling that as an upgraded version.
Yeah, there's always the commercial aspect.
Yeah.
well, maybe this isn't a quote unquote hobbyist grade sensor, and hobbyists have just taken it and it's
Yeah.
actually a commercial sensor.
It is. They talk about using it to detect levels in a truck and tanks and stuff.
So if you had a very specific purpose for this, you would want to put different firmware on it so that it would do
Yeah, maybe.
something slightly different.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to get the source for the firmware on it. I don't doubt I can understand it, but it'd be fun to be able to play with how it generates interrupts and what it needs to see, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe very precise. Is it average all the points in a flat surface like a tank level
Yeah.
liquid? Maybe become a very high precision sensor for distance. I don't know.
And then a fish jumps in.
Well, if it's an array of sensors, then
We need to check how SparkFun use it.
you could change it to,
Count the fish.
you could change it to do all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's got 5 millimeter accuracy, that's cool, and I suspect it's better than that.
Well, it says room mapping, obstacle detection, not avoidance, obstacle detection, gesture recognition, IoT, laser assisted autofocus, AR and VR. I mean, I'm guessing you could load the firmware. See, because at least I didn't need a library to make those time of flight sensors work.
Mhm.
So it's just every time you ask for something, it gives you the whole thing, and you just gotta know where to read that data. So I'm guessing if the other time of flight sensor, you could make it tell you very specific pieces of information that you want with different firmware loaded into it.
Yeah.
Because when I read these here, it sends like a big long train of data, and I just have to know where the data is that I want to pick it out. I mean, it's in an array. I mean, you know which array you want to read, but or which which buffer you want to read.
Okay,
But it sends the entire.
what other sort of data can it send other than distance?
There's a bunch of stuff in there. There's accuracy or what it believes
Okay, confidence.
is accurate. There were 6 or 7 different things that it was sending down, and you could use this as a gesture sensor, and you
Yeah.
set it into a slightly different mode, and then it would send a little bit different string of data out. But it didn't need a library. It was just reading I2C and knowing which register you wanted to look at. I was like, oh, that's cool. So no library required. Of course, they make libraries for it, which is ultimately pointless.
Maybe you can use it to point to your feet and choose your shoe size in
Yeah.
the store.
Well, why not? Within millimeters. Your shoe is this size within millimeters. These sensors seem like they're very, very accurate though. So especially when I did the averaging of them, and they're just putting out the same number
Okay.
over and over and over again. That seems like they're decent sensors. They're good sensors. I like it. I just need to figure out why it doesn't work.
What is supposing that the robot must do? Just avoid obstacles or go somewhere or what?
Here, later.
So on.
Right.
I mean, the original robot, the one that had the ultrasonics, all it was doing was avoiding things. So,
Okay.
um,
Why don't you go back to the exact size and construction of the original robot? Because you are changing so much stuff.
you know, that would be too easy, right?
Looks
Not
like
not
it's
enough
not-
of a challenge.
Don't look easy. What are you doing?
Let's talk about my project of the week.
What you are doing?
Okay, I got a 4X 4-power Reolink camera. It's
Okay.
it's a 5 megapixel, and it's a zoom,
Mhm.
4-power zoom. I'm going to use it to track cars
Mhm.
and trucks, as it were.
Mhm.
And it's 4-power. 4-power is not what I expected it to be. It's 4-power out of -1 power. Like most cameras, they say 2x zoom, you're gonna start in the hole. You're starting
Okay.
with negative, and you don't go past, 1
Zero.
power, and then you go to 2, but it's 2 times -1, okay?
Mhm.
So it's not as much power as I wanted. It looks like my other camera that I put the manual lens on is about a 6 power.
Really?
So I'm down.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just changed out the lens on it. I really don't know what power it. I changed out the lens on it. But I noticed if you look at AliExpress, they have tons of cameras over there. Tons. They're not real link. They're not, will they work with whatever? You don't know. You have to know what you're doing. But what I see is they're coming out with 10x cameras, 10 power cameras, but it's 2 lens cameras. It's 2 cameras really is what it is.
Okay.
And so it's not a zoom, it's a 1 or a 10.
Oh, okay.
And they're cheap because cameras are cheap now.
Mhm.
Okay, so they're about $50. So this zoom was a used refurb, real like I paid $60 for it. The zoom was not what I wanted. So what it ends up with, when I get a picture of a truck or whatever, what I have to do is take a picture of the truck and I cut out the part that I want. I have to cut out the timestamp and paste it with the part that I want, and then cut out the part that I want and save it. So the resolution is about the same. Okay. The good news is that the camera doesn't go to IR as quick. So it lasts longer into the night and it starts up earlier in the morning and having a full color. And because when it goes to black and white, the resolution goes to hell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you cannot adjust the points at which it trips over to IR?
You can, but it basically it just delays it. The old camera switches at a higher level, and you can basically you can adjust the timing on it, but you really you're going to lose if you try to switch early. It'll switch a little bit earlier possibly. They have a timer in that has a timer. It delays the switch over, or you can have it go instantly. If you make it go instantly, what that's going to do is it's going to switch back and forth because of shadows and whatever. So you want to have a delay. You got to have a
Right.
certain amount of delay to keep it from going back and forth. But anyhow, also in the news this week, we got the world's carbon dioxide battery is here and needs only steel and water. A carbon dioxide battery? Any idea how that works?
No, but if it needs steel and water, where's the carbon coming from?
What they're doing is it's for bulk. It's not for cameras and stuff. It's what they're doing is they're compressing CO2 down to liquid,
Okay.
and you with the solar, and then when they want to generate power, they let the liquid, they reduce the pressure through a turbine
Mhm.
to drive a generator.
Okay. 2,300 PSI or so.
That'd drive a nice turbine. Yeah,
That is
that's
really lossy.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely lousy. But if you got solar power and you don't have batteries,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? It's better than not poke in the eye.
So what's the water got to do with anything?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
It's closed loop. Basically, it's closed loop. It's like a condenser.
Oh, then they've got to have a huge tank for the.
Yes.
The CO2, yeah. Yeah, but
Is it-
you're compressing CO2 in a huge tank,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And you gotta run a compressor, yep. Yeah, it's very lossy, but it's better if you don't have anything, it's better. They have a prototype, they're building a prototype now, they're expecting it to be a couple of years down the road. This is one of those hypotheticals.
I wonder why CO2 instead of nitrogen. Nitrogen's less reactive and a lot more available.
Well, CO2 is wonderful. What are you talking about? You're taking CO2 out of the air, Steve.
You're taking CO2 out of the air, but it's going to break down in that steel tank, and you're going to have free oxygen, which is going to combine with your iron tank. It's going to,
But you
and
say-
nitrogen wouldn't do that.
You 316 liner on it, and you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the tree huggers will love it, man.
Not if they think.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I said. The tree huggers will love it. What do you're duplicating yourself. Yeah, they're the solid state battery guys are screaming again with ceramic mixture of stuff and glass like ceramic for the electrolyte, and they're talking about end of 23. Yeah, we'll see.
That sounds to me like that might be one of those perpetually a year away kind of things. Okay.
Yeah, they run into the same problem. They have the materials that gather on the cathode.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have the same problem. They're working on that. Yeah, it may be one of those perpetual jobs, but still lots of battery articles. Oh yeah.
Well, it's a hot topic.
And one
It
that's
is.
killing me is Netflix is buying Roku.
Oh, really?
What?
Yeah, that's scary.
Why is that scary?
Because we got free stuff on Roku all the time. Not bad stuff too.
And occasionally you get Netflix stuff on Roku, I think. I always thought that was supposed to be pronounced rock you.
Rock you.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is one for art. TSMC says it will move to nanosheet transistors at 2 nanometers.
Okay. And this is predicted for when?
Well, they're moving to 3 right now, and they're saying it's a couple of years that I'm guessing. They're in transition to 3 right now. So it's another one's in the future.
Intel is in production with 6.5 right now.
Yeah. And that's pretty low yield right at the moment.
There's a cute article about Jupiter and the temperatures and what's going on Jupiter.
It's warm and wet. It burns your eyes.
And another battery, the forever battery that could change the world. Okay, I think that's probably the solid state. That's it for me. What you got, Steve?
Not much. There's some city that they run air compressors to pressurize a cave underneath the city.
Oh, yeah.
I've been real curious what's happened with that, because that just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah. If the rock lets loose, the city goes, right?
Yeah, and they're doing the one with the deep well into the ground, like a mile underground, and they fill it with water or something. Yeah, they're pushing a rock up to the top and let it come to the bottom. You fill it with water and let it come to the bottom, whatever. That's more mechanical than I would want.
Yeah.
Why are they pressurizing the cave?
Similar to what he was talking about earlier, they're spinning a turbine with it. They're using windmills and solar to pressurize this big cave, and then they run turbines off of that when they don't have sunlight and wind.
Okay,
And
it just seems weird.
it seems like hugely lossy. I remember about 20 articles about it when they started it, and it was in production. I haven't heard much since.
Well, it's like you fill a balloon and then you put a turbine on it as you exhaust the gas out of it.
It's
So,
the same thing as pumping water to a dam that's on the side of a mountain. They do that.
yep, yep.
Done that for years.
Yes.
Water turbines
Off-hour
are a
use.
lot more.
All that assumes you have water.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, water's pretty easy. At least over here. Sorry.
Yeah. Have you looked at the pictures of the Hoover Reservoir?
Yeah, that's impressive.
I was there about 3 years ago. It was bad.
Oh, it's worse now.
Man.
The big sections of the bank are just completely dry at this point.
It was about 40 feet, 100 feet down when we were there.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about that is that they've started revealing
Bodies.
bodies. So they've
Some of them are
apparently,
on drums, so it's not an accident.
yeah, particularly since they have cement around the feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Vegas. What happens in Vegas usually stays in Vegas.
Yeah, right.
That's, you mean all those movies where they show people being tossed into the dam might actually be real?
There are
Looks
nine bodies inside the dam that they're certain of. 9 guys that died while they were pouring that.
Oh, yeah. I believe that.
That was an impressive project, honestly. 9 lives, that's not that bad. I mean,
For a project that size, that's actually kind of impressive.
Well, when I was in college, one of the engineering criteria was that you killed no more than one person per $1 million of construction. Now, today that would be deadly. Okay, they'd shut down the operation. But in those days, that was an acceptable fatality rate. You know, if you only lost 1 per $1 million, you were considered to be in tall cotton. That was before the days of OSHA, by the way, just to put it in perspective. This was about 20, at least 15 years before OSHA. So today you lose one person and the paperwork will drive you nuts.
You lose one person, the project shuts down for 4 years. 5
Well,
years.
that also is true. But if you just badly injure somebody, the OSHA paperwork, you know, is unbelievable.
I have to wonder if, you know, if the current regulations and everything, if we would have some of the skyscrapers that we have.
Oh, no.
Well, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
No,
Hoover Dam would not have been built. Lake Mead wouldn't be there.
See, government getting in the way of progress.
We have oxygen scavengers, by the way, in Middleton. Big time. Oh, yeah,
Oh, okay, for AK Steel.
for, I don't know who, probably that, probably them too.
The interstate highway system probably wouldn't exist either.
Yeah,
That was Eisenhower's baby. He came back from Europe after the war and said, you know, one of the advantages the Germans have is they have great roads that can get you and get your troops from point A to point B in no time at all. So,
yep. There's I, the interstate system is actually fairly impressive.
well, of course, it's still going on. They're still building it,
Yeah,
but the big push in the 50s was incredible. And now, of course, every major city of any reasonable size now has a beltway all the way around it, like Cincinnati 275, Columbus 270.
yep.
Here
Many
in,
cities-
pardon?
many cities has this ring around.
Yeah,
DC has 3, I think.
well, they're mostly going around in circles anyway.
You know, the numbering system is just
Nice.
nice. I mean, you can hear one number and you know if it's east or west or up or down or if it's a loop.
Yep.
My girlfriend still does not get that.
Yeah. Or if it's a lateral
Yeah.
or whatever, that's got a different number.
Yeah, those they've messed up.
They
Used to
have
be
messed
able to
those
tell
up.
if it's a spur coming into a city, and you can't anymore.
Yeah, the laterals they kind of messed with, but the loops and the north-south, yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
I remember,
Somebody was going, all these numbers go this way and all these numbers go this way.
I remember as a kid being at Colerain Avenue, and 275 wasn't a loop yet. That was one end of it.
Right.
And I know 71 through Cincinnati wasn't finished until 1975. So
Yeah.
that's fairly recent history. in
Well-
the grand scheme of things.
20 years ago, when I went to California, we drove on the northern leg.
Mhm.
That's across
Out there.
80 or across 90?
It's 80, I believe, but I think we hit Idaho and the interstate turned into a 2-lane road.
Mhm.
And you could see where they were digging for the
Ramps and stuff.
for the stuff, but it looked like nobody had been there to dig or do anything for years. So the interstate going out, west, it's definitely not complete,
Right.
and it turned into a 2-lane road, and I'm like, wow. But of course, traffic was also pretty much non-existent, so a
It was
2-lane
Idaho.
a 2-lane road was not a big deal, but
Well, unless it was around the city.
yeah.
It was
Well,
around the city.
Around the city, they had the interstate again. I mean, it went back to a regular deal, but out there in the country,
So when was this?
about 20 years ago. I haven't been out there since, so I don't know if
So this is like in the 90s. You're talking about in the 90s or in the
it
2000s?
would have been probably would have been 99, maybe early 2000.
Yeah, well, the way it works with 70 and 80, which are both westbound is that on the east end, both of them go all the way across.
Mhm.
But 70 gets to Utah and stops. It doesn't get to California. 80 goes all the way across.
The route we took stopped somewhere and we hit something and went south. And we picked up the lower half. Because before we went to California, we went to Area 51 in Nevada and we went to Vegas.
Area 51 is in
Arizona.
Arizona, right?
Right.
Area 50. Well, you were going across 10 probably.
We went south somewhere out there. We dropped and went south. It was a diagonal, it was a southern diagonal down. And we saw we went to Area 51, we went to Vegas, and then we went to LA.
Yeah,
Then eastern Arizona.
that's south.
Arizona.
Area 51, we were on in the Nevada side. That's where we went.
Arizona is where Area 51 is.
Nevada. We went to Nevada. Groom Lake.
Hmm.
And now
So-
now everybody's looking to see where Area 51.
So
Yeah.
how far south were you in Nevada? South of Vegas?
It was only about 10 miles of that. Look at that. So,
There's a,
no,
East-
that's
east.
East 70. That's not Interstate 70.
Oh, okay.
Nevada.
Federal routes are different.
yeah. There's one route that goes directly from Vegas to LA. I know that.
4 hours.
15.
Pardon?
That's US 15.
Yeah,
It used
but
to
that's
be-
not an interstate, I don't think.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
According to Google Maps, I can't get to Area 51 from here.
That's hilarious.
In Nevada.
It's Area 51 Nevada, but
Yeah. Groom
I can't get there from here.
Lake in southern Nevada.
Cove Fort you.
What's the one that's in New Mexico then?
Roswell, we went to Roswell, New Mexico too while we were
Yeah.
going.
Course installed in Groom Lake in southern Nevada.
Huh. Okay. Edwards is clear out in California.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, not very far from the coast.
Have you been to the Alien?
The Alien
Yeah, I
out,
went to
out
the
in
Alien.
Rachel, Nevada. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the chip?
So to get to
Have you been
Roswell,
to
that's
the mailbox?
mailbox. I don't know that.
Okay. There's a mailbox out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh. Okay. I know when we were out there, it's amazing because you could tell like 20 miles away that you were getting close to something because there would be low parking spots. And in the morning when we drove past, these parking spot lots would be completely full of cars. And you would pass a bus or something coming the opposite direction, a big bus. And when we drove back out, this parking lot was completely clear and there was no traffic anywhere. There were nobody around. It's like, where did these people go? They worked at Area 51. They got on the
Well,
unmarked government bus that took them into Area 51.
Oh, All you gotta do is pay attention on I-75. Okay, we sit at Tim Hortons and I've watched 100, 200 white tractor trailers going south a couple of years ago. And it was hundreds of them. And you come back the next day and there are hundreds more unmarked white tractor trailers.
Down in Cincinnati, there's a warehouse. It is so obvious what it is. It even says so. It's Cincinnati something, but it's CIA. Their initials are CIA.
Oh,
They sit back off the road a little bit, undescript building at Cincinnati Industrial something or other. And CIA. We know what they are because they got black sedans sitting in the parking lot, and they've got unmarked white trucks that go in there all the time.
The FBI building too, down just south of Montgomery Road, right next to I-71. They built that about, I guess, 10 or 12 years ago.
They weren't trying to hide that though, right?
No,
Cleveland's got a huge area.
Yeah, it's right where Montgomery Road crosses 71.
yeah,
Yeah, my daughter used to work in the UBS building there, and it was right behind them.
I have accounts at UBS.
Pardon?
I have accounts at UBS.
So do I actually, but she works at Merrill Lynch now, so which is across 71.
Yep.
Going out though to Rachel, Nevada, which is about as close as you can get without triggering too many things. We went out a little bit further. There's signs out there in the middle of the desert that say unauthorized blah blah blah. You could
Turn around and go back, basically.
And those are still like 20 miles away from the actual base themselves. I mean, you know, it's a huge area out there. But Rachel is a little teeny tiny mobile home park.
Mhm.
They've got a gas station, they've got the Alien, and they've got like a bookstore. And these people live out there to watch the weird lights that happen up over the mountain. They'll tell you all about it. But it's bizarre because there's nothing out there and you'll see a parking lot. All of a sudden there's a parking lot that's completely full of cars. I haven't seen people for hundreds of miles and there's a parking lot out here. Where did all these cars come from?
Friend of mine many years ago lived in Las Vegas and worked for some unnamed government agency. And his routine was he went to the airport every morning, got on a plane, they flew someplace, he worked all day, and at night the plane flew back. He'd get out, get in his car and go home.
No windows in the plane.
Well,
You know,
No.
I think they were DC-3s. So I don't know if any of you have ever ridden on a DC-3, but it's an old, pre-World War II prop plane.
No, those were built for World War II. Two Wright Whirlwind J-14 engines. They're nice planes.
And they last forever.
And there are some still on use around the world.
the Vegas airport is why people actually started taking notice of what was out in Area 51 in the first place. Because all the flights are supposed to go up, and I think they all bank to the left to go out. And every now and then you see one banking off to the right, and you follow this plane, and it would just disappear. And they had special numbers too. They were weird numbers like JPLs or something.
Yeah.
They weird flight numbers. So if you listen to them on the scanners or whatever, you'd hear these weird flight numbers that didn't match anything that should.
And went the wrong way.
And they went the wrong way. And that was when people first started taking notice that, hey, there's something, there might actually be something out there in there, in that
Yeah.
big openness of the desert, 100 miles away from Vegas.
Well, a large portion of Nevada, there's not much in but desert and but that's also where they used to, in the days of atomic testing, Nevada, northern
That's right.
Arizona, and New Mexico is where they did the
It's right on the
atomic
edge of Area 51.
tests.
Yeah.
By the way, you probably want to take a Geiger counter with you when you drive out there because the area may glow at night.
It did before that too. That's where we got most of our nuclear material from. All those caves around there, the Indians would go in those things and start having weird dreams. They were being radiated. Irradiated.
Skinwalker Ranch, is it? Some of the shows, they have shows.
Er,
Never seen it.
I would say to anybody, go out to Rachel though. Rachel's a really cool little city. It's not even a city, it's a little,
Oh, I used to live in Vegas and I was entertained by the number of 4 house cities there were on each of the 4 corners of 2 roads crossing.
because when we were out there, there were little signs that popped up in the desert that said $2 an acre or something, but
Yeah.
you had to develop it.
Mhm.
Their idea of a development was throw a trailer out there.
Yep.
So
You can still get land pretty darn cheap there, especially if there are mine tailings on it. Because it's harder to build on top of, it's waste.
wow, I mean I talked to Patty. I was like, we need to buy some land out there in Vegas or out in Nevada. It's $2 an acre. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
But if you drill a well, you've got to go down a mile.
Well, I was just gonna throw a trailer out there and just call it mine. Call it
And
Millerville.
slowly desiccate what?
Call it Millerville. I don't know. Who'd own some land? I mean,
It's a desert. There's a reason that land is cheap.
Yep.
that's the same theory that I could find 100 acres in Alaska for $10,000.
Yeah. I'd rather live in Alaska.
So
than
would I.
Arizona.
So would I, but Patty doesn't want
But you need to skydive to reach your land.
That's true.
No
You need
way.
a plane or something to get there.
At one point, I was looking at property in New Mexico, and half of the property was up on top of a mesa, about 60 feet tall. It was 10 acres, and it was 10 grand. Oh, man. And then I started finding out what it would cost to get water. That was the only thing. Electric, no problem. Water, it would have cost me $50,000 for a well.
This is in northern New Mexico?
Right?
Northern New Mexico?
No, it was about a mile off of I-10.
Okay. So this is right down the road from Albuquerque then.
Yeah, not too far. About 70 miles from Albuquerque,
Yeah.
central New Mexico.
Okay. Yeah, I've driven that route across 10 there from California to someplace in Oklahoma. We went north up through Missouri.
So that would have been up I-35.
Well, we ended up, the next significant town was Joplin. Missouri,
Been there.
which is right in the southeast corner of Missouri.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, you're a couple of miles from the Arkansas line there, I think.
That's the panhandle. That's what they call that little thing that hangs down off of the bottom of Missouri.
Yep.
I'm getting the 1 minute warning. I'm getting the 1 minute warning.
Okay.
Doot, doot, doot. I'll see you guys next week.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye.
Brand new show.
I'll be in California.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I think.
Take care.
I'll be back
See
maybe
you later.